Welcome to today's episode of Life Purpose by Design. Today's episode is dedicated to Stroke Awareness Month. And so today I have a very special guest, author Lori Vober. Lori is not only an author, but she is a stroke survivor, recovery, and resiliency advocate. So join me and Lori Vober as we recognize Stroke Awareness Month. When I was looking through some inspirational quotes the other day, I came across this quote by someone named J.D. Meyer. And he stated his life mission is simple: to improve the quality of life for as many people as I can, as long as I can. Today's guest, author Lori Vober, exemplifies the spirit of what appears to be a very simple life mission, but it's so much more. So I want to welcome author Lori Vober as a returning guest to Life Purpose by Design for some very important information that she wants to share with us as she continues her journey of being a stroke survivor, and not just a survivor, but I call her a stroke recovery thriver. Welcome, Lori, to Life Purpose by Design.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you so much for having me back on. I so much appreciate it. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you back. And I am so glad that I had an opportunity to talk with you and for you to educate me more about stroke awareness, prevention, recovery, and resiliency. So I am just very grateful that we have an opportunity for you to share with us what is Stroke Awareness Month, why is this important to you. But first, the last time we talked, you shared with us about your book, Choices. When you are faced with a challenge, what choice will you make? And I know that you've had your book launch. I've seen you doing a lot of incredible book signings. So, one, I want to encourage people to get the book. It really is a life transforming vessel or vehicle of information. So, tell us first, what have you been up to with your book launch and beyond?
Well, life has been very busy, and I so much appreciate your support as well as many others out there. This has been an incredible journey, and yes, my book launched in March. Like you just shared, it's called Choices. When you're faced with a challenge, what choice will you make? And one of my biggest message is in the book is life never turns out exactly like we'll picture it, and we are all faced with challenges in our life. However, when we are faced with challenges, we all have a choice of how we're going to react to our circumstances. And as you'll learn in my book, my biggest challenge started out when I had my first challenge of a stroke at just age 29. It was a massive stroke caused by an undetected malformation of blood vessels on the right side of my brain, which caused a massive bleed that left me paralyzed at the time of the stroke on the left side. And I worked very, very hard for many, many years to get my independence back. And I do still have a disability, and my left side is now I call an active assist to my right side, but I'm independent. And we went 8 years post-stroke and decided to continue our family planning. And we were able to adopt 3 children internationally. And so I've been able to do many things and achieve many of my goals beyond the stroke. And even at the time of the book launch, God threw another big whammy in. And in February, right before my book launched in March, he came up with another medical challenge, and the fact that cyst was found, and we thought that it might have been ovarian cancer. I went through a full hysterectomy and an appendectomy right after my book launched on April 6th. Luckily, it ended up being a benign cyst, but as God would have it, He took me to a wonderful facility called the Cancer Centers of America. I was blessed with a fabulous doctor team, and I'm now involved with many volunteer opportunities there with cancer patients. I'm sharing my story with them, and I'm actively involved there at the Cancer Center. So God has a plan for each and everything in our lives, and that's just part of my story. But right now, with May being National Stroke Awareness Month, I am extremely passionate as a stroke survivor about stroke awareness. And even though it's been 19 years since my massive stroke, I'm here to spread the message and the statistics on stroke because I was only 29. I was very healthy. It came up out of the blue, and so I'm passionate about it because I have learned as a, walking proof that stroke has no age restriction, and many people think that stroke is an older age disease, and it's not. And so I'm here to number one, try and help people understand the importance and the statistics of stroke. And also, I have a fundraiser going on right now in the month of May to raise some money for stroke. So I appreciate you having me on to spread the message and help educate people.
So, one of the things that I also found that J.D. Meyer says is that you can't control what lands on your plate, which means life, but you can control how you eat it. So, when I'm listening to you, Lori, of your journey from the stroke to becoming an author to continuing to be a voice and an advocate, even to your recent health challenge, again, we can't control what ends up on our life plate, but we can control how we eat it. So, I'm very anxious for you to educate us on stroke awareness, on the whole culture and language of strokes from a prevention perspective, but also from a life journey perspective post stroke. So, can you share with us some information regarding stroke awareness and some of the statistics that you mentioned?
Yes, definitely. I would be more than happy to share some of the statistics. Definitely, a lot of the things that people don't know, for instance, every 40 seconds, someone has a stroke. I, 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 and that's just phenomenal to me that statistic. Also, that 55,000 more women than men have a stroke each year, and that stroke is the number fifth cause of death each year. Also, 1 out of 4 stroke survivors are at risk for another stroke. Luckily, with my type of stroke, I wasn't at risk for another one, but 1 out of 4 stroke survivors are at risk. And 185,000 reoccurring strokes happen each year. So, it's something that a lot of people do have to worry about. And like I stated earlier, age doesn't matter when it comes to stroke. So it's very important, even when you think you're healthy, to be aware of these statistics. And I was not aware, even at age 29, of these statistics. And when my stroke happened, I was not aware at the beginning that the stroke was happening until my leg went numb and I fell from my chair in the church office. Did the bells and whistles go off, and did we call 911? And then that was a warning sign that the stroke was actually happening. Some more statistics, just to continue to educate your listeners. Each year, 795,000 people in the United States suffer a stroke, and which is a lot of people. But this is the interesting thing. There's 2 types of strokes. There's what's called an isometric stroke and a hemorrhagic stroke. Isometric is actually the most popular. That's 87% of people. And a hemorrhagic stroke, 13%. Now, I was the one that had a hemorrhagic stroke. So I was in the less percentile um, of, of, of the people. So most people do have the isometric stroke, and those are the strokes that are usually caused by a blood clot. So when you hear people say, I had a blood clot, or I had what's called a TIA, those are the ischemic strokes. Um, but uh, one of the things I'd really like to point out, if we keep going on some of the more statistics that I have, is like I said previously, as far as reoccurring strokes, 1 in 6 people will experience a stroke in their lifetime. So, we're not exempt necessarily from a stroke. Also, high blood pressure is one of the leading causes of stroke. Mine was caused by a malformation of blood vessels, but I think also blood pressure had something to do with it. 80% of strokes can be prevented, and a stroke is one of the leading cause of deaths of people over the age of 60. But there are over 26 million stroke survivors living among us. And so these are just a little of the statistics to help you be aware. But one of the things I want to really draw your attention to is just how to be aware of what it is to be aware of with a stroke. And there's something called Be Fast. And that's an acronym to know what it's like when you're going to have a stroke. And that stands for balance, difficulties, headache, and dizziness, if you have any of those, or eyesight. If your eyesight changes, you have blurred vision, or your face. If your face is drooping, or you have any face weakness, or your arm. If your arm has any weakness, or your leg has any weakness or difficulty, speech. If you have any speech difficulty, you can't talk correctly, if you're slurring your speech, those are all indications you may be having a stroke, and you should call 911 immediately. I had a horrible headache. I was starting to feel dizzy. My arm was numb and heavy. My leg was numb, and I was starting to feel very nauseated and slurring my speech by the time we called 911. So I was showing all the signs of the stroke just at age 29. So
That's
these
so
all
incredible. Thank you for the information. And I think that you're continuing to emphasize the fact that age is not a factor, to put all of us on alert and for all of us to know our health risk status. So I think information and education is so important, and particularly for those of you all who may know that you have at risk for a stroke because you have high blood pressure.
Mhm.
But there are some alarming statistics about the number of people who are walking around with undiagnosed high blood pressure who may be experiencing certain symptoms that are indicative of high blood pressure. So, as you're sharing information with us, Lori, I thank you for the emphasis on knowing your health status, knowing your risk factors, and also just being aware when something changes, when something different is happening in your body, that it's a good idea to check that out and not just assume that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, I just thought it was my allergies or different things. So thank you so much for that. Is there so let's talk about the challenge that you have for us for the month of May.
Yes. So I have two things actually for the month of May. One was a challenge. I just was very interested for the month of May of putting out a what I called the one arm challenge, and that was to encourage people to live one day or one week in the life of a stroke survivor, and try and do things with one hand and see what it's like, and just become a little more aware of what life is like for someone with a disability, and that could be someone with a stroke or a brain injury. And that way, when you see someone out and about in the public, you would have have a little more awareness of what their life is like, and the difficulties that they may live. And I was trying to have fun with it and encourage people just to have a little more compassion. Sometimes we all get so busy with our everyday lives that we forget what other people go through. So that was step one. And step two was a fundraiser part of stroke awareness for me. And that is in conjunction with a stroke camp that I attended back in 2008 before we adopted our kids. It's in conjunction with a program at Northern Arizona University, which is located in Flagstaff, and it's in conjunction with my clinic, which is called Swan Rehab, and the PhD occupational and physical therapy students at NAU. And they team up so that it's actually a win-win for stroke survivors that need good physical and occupational therapy, and PhD students there at NEU that need hands-on training. So they've set up this stroke camp it's a 1 week camp for the stroke survivors to get the much needed therapy they need, and the students to get the much needed hands-on training they need. So my fundraiser is to raise scholarships for this camp. I'm hoping to raise $650, which would award 2 scholarships to 2 stroke survivors to go to this camp, which will be held in November of this year. And so that's my current goal.
Okay, and I know that you have a goal of 650, but I want to encourage our listening audience to take action on the link and join Lori as she tries to change one life at a time as long as she can. So the link is there. I want to just encourage you to hit the link and to take action on the link. This is such a worthy cause, Lori. And I just want to thank you for the vision that you have for creating this challenge. And I have no doubt that you are going to experience that Ephesians 3:20 through 21 blessing, which says, God is able to do more than we can ask, think, or imagine. So I'm very excited to see the final outcome and the abundance that God is going to grant you and to reward the works of your hands. So, Lori, is there anything else that you want to share with us going forward, whether it's about the book, whether it's about the challenge, any exciting news that you can share with us?
Well, I just want to thank you again for all your support. I am just so encouraged. I would love it if your listeners would just continue to support my book. If you have not read my book, please jump on and order it today. You can order it directly from my website. There's links on my website. Otherwise, you can find it on many of the retail sites. I will be working on a new book coming out soon. I'm working on writing it now. It's going to be a 31-day devotional, and it will include this last medical challenge through my journey with possible cancer and my experiences at the Cancer Center. And so that devotional will hopefully be out this time next year, and that will be a 31-day devotional that will piggyback off this first book. So I'm busy perfecting that now, and so I'm excited for that to come out. I'm also going to be a author, one of 10 to 15 authors that will have another book coming out in October of this year, and it's a book that's going to be an encouraging book, all written by women stroke survivors, and we are all coming together as women stroke survivors to write our stories of stroke and encouragement. So that is something else exciting happening, and that book will be coming out in October. So God's opened a lot of wonderful doors for me, and I'm just keeping my eyes on Him, and excited to continue to share my story and bring hope and encouragement to others when I can.
Well, I just want to thank you again for being that role model and mentor for someone who um, exemplifies resiliency, and not just from an easy place, but from a hard place.
Um,
And so I just want to again applaud you from exemplifying what J.D. Meyer stated as his life mission, and that is again to improve the quality of life for as many people as I can, as long as I can. So we celebrate with you on your new ventures, for the new books, for the devotional, for the challenge, and everything else that you and I are firm believers that God says He will reward the works of our hands. So you are definitely working with your hands, and you're working with the gifts and the talents that God has given you. And so here at Life Purpose by Design, our mission and our heartfelt passion is to educate and to engage and equip others to discover and excel in their true life purpose with clarity, with confidence, and with resiliency. And so, having guests like author Lori Vober here, our goal is to bring to you other examples of living examples of people who are doing just that every day. Lori, thank you again so much for joining here at Light Purpose by Design. And I'm going to be in touch because I'm working on something for September, and I would love for you to be part of that platform. So just hold a slot for me for September before you give all your dates away. Thank you again, and we will definitely be in touch. Thank you so much for joining us here at Life Purpose by Design. We want to just encourage you still to pursue the purpose that God has designed for you, and to pursue that with passion, with purpose, and with resiliency. Have a blessed day.